Tonight's topic is the appropriate role and size of government, and at the start of in an election year with the budget, federal budget only 6 weeks away, it's a pretty timely topic. Indeed, the role of government, particularly the role of a Labor government, is a very important discussion to have. And it's a discussion that is ultimately about values and purpose, a discussion of policies and of principles. And depending on where you stand, the role of government is viewed very differently. So tonight I want to speak with you about what the role of government is for Labor and what constitutes the Labor project in today's Australia. And too often a discussion like this is ignored in the day-to-day political debate, where, as you would know, slogans, sound bites and personal vitriol are all too dominant. The Fabians' stated purpose of generating ideas that reflect a level of thinking that meets the challenge of our times seems a pretty distant test from Australia's contemporary political culture. So tonight I want to speak about our challenges of today and tomorrow, and the opportunities beyond, and what we must do to grasp them. But I also want to outline why the decisions of this government follow firmly in the tradition of modern Labor, of the governments of Hawke and Keating, in the pursuit of both opportunity and fairness. So first, let's start with tonight's topic, and at the risk of sounding like the first speaker on a high school debating team, and I wasn't on the high school debating team most of the time, I think that asking about the size of government is actually the wrong question. It's the question Conservatives recite as they try to justify mass sackings and savage cuts to the essential services that the community relies upon. Ensuring government is efficient is important, as can be seen by the billions of dollars in efficiencies we have realised since we came to office. But there is a philosophical difference between seeking to provide the same services or better services more efficiently and indiscriminately cutting to adhere to a rigid ideological agenda that is all about diminishing the role of government. Driving efficiencies, particularly for a Labor Finance Minister, is a core activity because it enables dollars to be used for better purposes. And so the question, I think, of greater relevance to Australians is what is the role of government? When we as a government stepped in during the global financial crisis to protect jobs and to ensure the economy was supported, it averted the devastating consequences of widespread unemployment and the economic hardship that we have seen in many other nations. Those countries with unacceptably high levels of unemployment must have, if they listened, found it remarkable that the Shadow Finance Minister earlier this week described the global financial crisis and the government's response as a myth. To construct these sorts of decisions only as size of government decisions, as many do, deliberately hides the real-life consequences for workers, for families of the alternative. And to consider what the government did during the GFC as a size of government question alone deliberately ignores the macroeconomic consequences of not pursuing a counter-cyclical response. I believe the better question is always what is the role of government? What is the purpose that we are trying to achieve, and what can government do or not do in order to achieve it? And of course, government's role has to recognise the relationship between the community and the individual, because the characteristics or nature of our community changes the experience and the opportunity of the individual. Personal aspiration may enable one child from a poor family to succeed, but on its own it will not lift the many. Similarly, governments may enable opportunity, but only the individual ultimately can take them. So I suppose at the simplest level, I see the role of government as getting the settings right. The right economic settings for job creation, for economic growth, for innovation. The right policy settings to deliver the best possible education for all our children. A healthcare system for all. A safety net to ensure we do not leave people behind. And of course also the right partnerships to both support those in need and also to pursue economic opportunities. And government's role must always be to look to the long term as well as the near. This government's decisions are shaped by our perspectives and our values. And I want to talk about values because I believe as a progressive party, the Labor Party's perspective is naturally different to those of Conservative parties. Where the Conservatives find comfort and direction in the past, progressive parties have to look to the future. We have to be a party that prepares the country for the challenges and opportunities ahead And we have to understand that our future prosperity is never assured, because we always must remember change is a permanent feature of modern life. With this forward-looking perspective also comes responsibility. A responsibility to prepare the country to not just meet the challenges ahead, but to prosper by making the most of the opportunities these challenges bring. And this also requires an intergenerational conscience, an ear to the unspoken voices of the next generation of Australians. Our responsibility to safeguard the prosperity of future generations informs our understanding of the importance of long-term reforms, such as those to our schools, such as investment in national infrastructure, such as the National Broadband Network. And I say to you, it is also reflected in the imperative of having a sustainable budget position. So what are the values that underpin our approach to governing? Well, they are Labor values, values of fairness and the equality of opportunity. To work to ensure that all Australians get the start they deserve and have the opportunity to make their own way. To ensure that a parent's background is not the primary determinant of their child's choices. Values of fairness that require us to provide for those less well off in our society and to work to ensure that no Australian is left behind. And an intergenerational fairness that weighs the opportunities of the next generation on an equal basis to those of today. Because I believe our obligation is not only to ensure the next generation have the same benefits that we enjoy, but it is higher. It is to make sure that your opportunities are even greater. In a political climate that is shaped by the continual news cycle, the importance of longer-term reform can't be underestimated. It's only through continuing the reform momentum that we can meet the challenges and realise the opportunities that will shape the coming decades. And how we respond to these economic challenges is a statement of our values, and how we pursue these opportunities is a reflection of the principles we bring to governing. These are values central to how Labor governments, and today these are the same values which shape the policies and priorities of the Hawke and Keating governments. Crucially, and just as Prime Ministers Hawke and Keating understood, this government understands that opportunity requires a growing economy. Indeed, for Labor governments, economic growth is a starting point. The Hawke and Keating governments understood that opening Australia's economy to the global marketplace was important. It was a move we recall now was opposed by some in business and in the Labor movement at the time, but one with hindsight that positioned this nation for years of economic growth. By opening our eyes to our region and increasing our competitiveness through things like the reduction of tariffs, it was a Labor government that first took the real steps into the Asian century, and those are footsteps that this government and the nation are following in. And because of the opportunities of the Asian century and because of the challenges of an ageing population, the reality is we cannot leave our economic growth to chance. You have to continue to invest as a government in the drivers of a growing economy. So what are we focused on? Well, it is a smarter, fairer and stronger Australia, ensuring we get policy settings right to meet the significant challenges as well as the opportunities ahead, and always endeavouring to deliver on values of fairness and opportunity. So at the forefront of this agenda, as you know, is the reform of our schools. And why is that the case? It's because we understand that the central role that education plays as an enabler of opportunity. It's both a principal approach to provide opportunity to all, but it is also an economic reform, a reform to meet the challenges before us. In fact, I take the view that they are reinforcing ideals, because the greater the opportunity we provide to all Australian children, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, the greater likelihood they will achieve a higher level of education than would otherwise have been the case. This leads to a greater contribution and a more vibrant economy. So this opportunity opens the door to both a more equal society and a more productive society.